The late August heat clung to New Orleans like an unwelcome guest, refusing to leave even as the sun dipped below the horizon. Miles Corbin's office fan spun lazily overhead, pushing the humid air around without providing any real relief. He loosened his tie and reached for the bottle of bourbon in his desk drawer, a ritual that had become as much a part of his evening as the jazzy melodies drifting up from the club below. 5 years had passed since the Calloway case. 5 years since his badge had been taken, since the whispers of corruption had followed him through the precinct doors for the last time. The newspaper clippings yellowed in a folder he couldn't bring himself to throw away. Detective's testimony sends innocent man to prison. He hadn't known the evidence was planted. At least that's what he told himself on better days. The knock at his door was unexpected. He wasn't exactly swimming in clients these days. "It's open," he called, quickly replacing the bourbon in the drawer. She entered like a cool breeze, her cream-colored dress a stark contrast to the dingy office. Wealthy from the looks of her pearls and the careful way her dark hair was styled. Not his usual clientele. "Mr. Corbin? I'm Juliette Dubois." The name registered immediately. The Dubois family was old money in New Orleans, one of the original Creole families whose influence stretched back to before the Louisiana Purchase. "What can I do for you, Miss Dubois?" He gestured to the chair across from his desk, noting how she hesitated before sitting, as if afraid the dust might stain her dress. "I need your help with a matter of utmost discretion." Her voice carried the faintest trace of a French accent, likely cultivated at some expensive finishing school. "I've been told you were once the best detective on the force." "Were" being the operative word, he replied dryly. She ignored his self-deprecation. "There has been a theft, Mr. Corbin, a significant one. Jewelry, cash, family heirlooms." These were the usual concerns of the wealthy. "Information." She opened her purse and removed a photograph, placing it carefully on his desk. "This is Dr. Harold Fleming. He's a prominent psychiatrist who treats many of New Orleans' elite families, including mine." Corbin studied the photo of a distinguished-looking man in his 50s, with a neatly trimmed beard and intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. 3 days ago, Dr. Fleming's office was broken into. The thief took patient files, specifically those containing the most sensitive information about the city's most influential families. Her gloved hands twisted in her lap. "Including details about my father's condition." "What condition would that be?" "My father suffers from delusions. He's been under Dr. Fleming's care for years. The information in those files could ruin us if made public." Corbin leaned back. "Why come to me? This sounds like police business." "The police have been notified, but they're focusing solely on recovering the files. I need someone who can work more discreetly, someone who understands that preventing the information from spreading is as important as finding the thief." She leaned forward. "There's more. Since the theft, patients whose files were taken have begun receiving anonymous letters, blackmail threats. And your father? Not yet, but I fear it's only a matter of time." She reached into her purse again and placed an envelope on his desk. "My retainer, $500. Corbin's eyebrows rose. That would cover 6 months of rent on his office. "There will be another $500 when you recover the files and identify the blackmailer." "You seem awfully confident in my abilities, Miss Dubois." She stood, smoothing her dress. "I've done my research, Mr. Corbin. Despite what happened with the Calloway case, your record speaks for itself. You notice things others miss." She moved toward the door. "I'll expect daily reports. You can reach me at this number." She handed him a card with an embossed telephone number. As she reached the door, she turned. "One more thing, Mr. Corbin. The patients whose files were taken are all connected to the Crescent Club, a private social organization for New Orleans' oldest families. It may be relevant." After she left, Corbin poured himself that drink after all. The Crescent Club was notorious. Exclusive to the point of obsession, secretive about its membership and activities. He'd heard rumors during his time on the force, business deals made and broken, political careers launched or destroyed within its walls. He sipped his bourbon, considering the case. A theft of secrets rather than valuables, blackmail targeting the city's elite, and at the center, a prestigious social club, rumored to hold the real power in New Orleans. Corbin pulled out a fresh notebook and began jotting down his initial thoughts. First stop, Dr. Fleming's office. Then he'd need to learn more about the Crescent Club and its members. As the night deepened and the jazz from downstairs grew more frenetic, Miles Corbin found himself doing something he hadn't done in years, looking forward to tomorrow. The offices of Dr. Harold Fleming occupied the second floor of a well-maintained building in the Garden District, surrounded by the palatial homes of New Orleans' wealthy. The waiting room was tastefully furnished with leather chairs and potted ferns, designed to put nervous patients at ease. Dr. Fleming himself was less composed than his photograph suggested. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his hands trembled slightly as he shook Corbin's hand. "Miss Dubois informed me you would be coming," he said, ushering Corbin into his private office. "I've already spoken with the police, but I'm happy to help in any way I can." "Tell me about the break-in," Corbin said, taking out his notebook. "It happened Saturday night. I came in Sunday morning to prepare notes for Monday's appointments and found the place ransacked." Fleming gestured around the meticulously organized office, now restored to order. The filing cabinet had been forced open, and specific patient files were missing. "Only certain files, not all of them," Fleming nodded. "Only those belonging to members of certain families, all connected to the Crescent Club. Very deliberate. Any signs of forced entry? That's the strange part. None whatsoever. The police believe the thief had a key." Corbin made a note. "Who else has keys to your office?" "Just my secretary, Mrs. Patterson. She's been with me for 15 years, completely trustworthy." "Mind if I speak with her?" Fleming hesitated. "She's quite shaken by all this." "But yes, of course." Mrs. Patterson was a thin woman in her 50s, with wire-rimmed glasses and an air of efficient competence. She answered Corbin's questions directly, confirming that she'd locked up as usual on Saturday evening. "Did anything unusual happen in the days before the theft?" Corbin asked. "Any strange visitors, phone calls, or requests to see files?" Mrs. Patterson's eyes flickered briefly to Dr. Fleming before she answered. "Nothing out of the ordinary." That slight hesitation was enough for Corbin. There was something she wasn't saying. After a few more questions, Corbin thanked them both and left, but instead of heading back to his office, he found a cafe across the street. An hour later, Mrs. Patterson emerged from the building. Corbin followed her to a small diner several blocks away, where she met a young man, early 20s, well-dressed but nervous, constantly checking over his shoulder. Their conversation was intense but brief. Money changed hands, from Mrs. Patterson to the young man. Corbin quickly photographed the exchange with his pocket camera before the young man hurried away. Following at a distance, Corbin tracked him to a modest apartment building in a less fashionable part of town. A mailbox in the lobby identified the resident as T. Wilson. Back at his office, Corbin developed the photographs and made notes on his findings. The next morning, he visited the records department at City Hall, where an old colleague helped him access employment records. Thomas Wilson, aged 24, worked as a clerk at the Crescent Club for the past 2 years. That afternoon, Corbin visited the imposing Crescent Club building on St. Charles Avenue. The doorman blocked his entrance. "Members only, sir." "I'm here to speak with Thomas Wilson." "Mr. Wilson isn't available. May I ask what this is regarding?" "Just tell him Miles Corbin would like a word about Dr. Fleming's files." The doorman's expression remained impassive, but he disappeared inside. Minutes later, a different man emerged. Older, impeccably dressed, with cold eyes and a forced smile. "Mr. Corbin, I'm Edward Montague, manager of the Crescent Club. I understand you're looking for one of our employees?" "That's right. Thomas Wilson. I'm afraid Mr. Wilson is no longer employed here. He resigned quite suddenly yesterday. Most unprofessional. Left no forwarding address." Corbin studied Montague's face. "Interesting timing." "Indeed. Now, if that's all, one more question. Are you familiar with Juliette Dubois?" Something flickered in Montague's eyes. "Miss Dubois is from one of our founding families. Her father, George Dubois, is a valued member." He paused, "though his health has prevented his attendance of late." "And what about Dr. Harold Fleming?" "I believe several members consult Dr. Fleming professionally. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have matters to attend to." That evening, Corbin returned to Thomas Wilson's apartment building. The landlady informed him that Wilson had packed and left in a hurry the previous night, paying 2 months' rent in advance but leaving no forwarding address. As Corbin walked back to his car, a folded piece of paper tucked under his windshield wiper caught his eye. Opening it, he found a hastily scrawled message. "The Dubois family isn't what they seem. Meet me at Lafitte's blacksmith shop, 10 p.m. Come alone." Lafitte's blacksmith shop was one of the oldest buildings in the French Quarter, a brick structure dating back to the 18th century that now housed a bar rumoured to have once been a front for the pirate Jean Lafitte's smuggling operations. By day, it attracted tourists. By night, it became a haven for locals seeking strong drinks and anonymity in its dimly lit interior. Corbin arrived early, positioning himself at a corner table with a clear view of both entrances. At precisely 10 p.m. a woman entered, her face partially obscured by a wide-brimmed hat. She scanned the room before approaching Corbin's table. "Mr. Corbin." Her voice was low, nervous. "Have a seat. You have me at a disadvantage, miss. You can call me Eleanor." She sat, keeping her hat low. "I worked for the Dubois family for nearly 10 years as a household assistant. I was dismissed 3 months ago." "Why?" "Officially, for breaking a valuable vase. The truth is, I overheard things I shouldn't have." She glanced around nervously. "About Georges Dubois and his condition." "What sort of things?" "Mr. Dubois isn't mentally ill, as his daughter claims. He's being drugged." Her voice dropped even lower. "I caught Juliet adding something to his evening tea. When I confronted her, she fired me immediately and threatened to ruin me if I spoke to anyone." De Corbin's skepticism must have shown on his face, because Eleanor reached into her purse and removed a small notebook. "I kept records of what I saw. Dates, times, Mr. Dubois' symptoms. He was perfectly lucid in the mornings, before his first dose, but by afternoon he'd become confused, paranoid." She pushed the notebook across the table. "The symptoms match those of certain medications Dr. Fleming often prescribes. I believe Juliet has been obtaining them through him." "Why would she do this?" "Control of the family fortune. As long as her father is deemed incompetent, she manages everything. And there's more." Eleanor leaned closer. "The Crescent Club is more than a social organization. They control half the city's businesses through a network of shell companies. Mr. Dubois was planning to expose some of their less legitimate operations before he became ill." Corbin flipped through the notebook. The observations were detailed and consistent. "Why come to me with this?" "Because you're investigating the stolen files. Thomas Wilson took them at my request." She held up a hand as Corbin started to speak. "Not for blackmail, for protection. Those files contain Dr. Fleming's records of treating patients who aren't actually ill. It's a pattern. The club uses Fleming to diagnose inconvenient family members with various conditions, keeping them drugged and controlled. Mr. Dubois isn't the only victim. Where's Wilson now?" "Somewhere safe. We needed leverage to protect ourselves." She reached into her purse again and removed a small key. "This opens a storage locker at Central Station. The files are there." As she stood to leave, Corbin caught her arm. "Why should I believe you over Miss Dubois?" Eleanor's smile was sad. "Check George Dubois' symptoms against the medications listed in Fleming's files. Talk to him in the morning before his tea. Then decide." She slipped away into the crowded bar. The next morning, Corbin visited the Dubois mansion on Esplanade Avenue, claiming Juliet had requested an update on his investigation. The housekeeper reluctantly let him in, explaining that Miss Dubois was out, but expected back shortly. "I'll wait," Corbin said. "In the meantime, might I speak with Mr. Dubois? I understand he's usually at his best in the mornings." The housekeeper hesitated before leading him to a sunny sitting room where George Dubois sat reading a newspaper. Unlike the confused invalid Corbin had expected, Dubois was alert and articulate, engaging Corbin in a discussion about local politics and the latest developments in the oil industry. "My daughter tells me I've been unwell," Dubois confided. "But mornings are always clearer. By afternoon, the confusion sets in." He looked troubled. "Doctor says it's progressive dementia, but it's strange how it follows such a predictable pattern." Their conversation was interrupted by Juliet's arrival. Her surprise at finding Corbin with her father quickly turned to barely concealed anger. "Mr. Corbin, I don't recall scheduling a meeting this morning. I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd update you on my progress." Corbin rose. "Your father and I were having a fascinating conversation about the oil leases being negotiated by the Crescent Club." Juliet's face paled slightly. "Father's good days are becoming rare. We should let him rest now." She firmly guided Corbin from the room. "Perhaps you could share your update with me in the study." Once alone, her demeanor changed completely. "What exactly are you playing at, Mr. Corbin? I hired you to recover stolen files, not interrogate my father. I'm pursuing all angles of the investigation, including why those specific files were targeted." He studied her reaction. "I've located the files, by the way. They're in a storage locker at Central Station." Relief flashed across her face. "Excellent. Retrieve them immediately and bring them here. Before I do that, I'd like to know more about your father's condition and his relationship with the Crescent Club." Juliet's eyes narrowed. "That's not relevant to your assignment. On the contrary, I believe it's at the heart of it." The tension in the study was palpable as Juliette Dubois poured herself a glass of water, her hand trembling slightly. "You've clearly been misled by someone, Mr. Corbin. Let me guess, Eleanor Winters? You seem unsurprised. She's been trying to undermine my family since I dismissed her. Whatever she told you about my father's condition is a fabrication." "Is it? I just spoke with your father. He seemed remarkably lucid for a man supposedly suffering from advanced dementia." Juliet's composure faltered momentarily. "As I said, he has good days and bad. That's the cruel nature of his illness. Or perhaps it's the cruel nature of the medications he's receiving." Corbin removed Eleanor's notebook from his pocket. "I have detailed records of your father's symptoms corresponding exactly with the administration of his tea. This is absurd. I'm caring for my ill father while managing our family's affairs, something Eleanor could never understand with her limited education and even more limited perspective." What I find interesting," Corbin continued, ignoring her dismissal, "is the timing of your father's illness. It began shortly after he expressed concerns about certain Crescent Club investments that, according to my research, involve moving substantial funds through offshore accounts back into properties being quietly acquired throughout New Orleans." Juliet's laugh was brittle. "You sound like a conspiracy theorist, Mr. Corbin. The Crescent Club is simply a social organization for established families. An organization that employs Dr. Fleming to conveniently diagnose family members who become problematic. Your father isn't the first, is he? Fleming's files contain similar cases, prominent individuals suddenly developing conditions that leave financial control in the hands of more cooperative family members." The door to the study opened, and Edward Montague from the Crescent Club entered without knocking. Behind him was Dr. Fleming. "Juliet, my dear, your housekeeper mentioned you had an unexpected visitor." Montague's voice was smooth, but his eyes were cold as they assessed Corbin. "I thought Dr. Fleming and I might join you, given the sensitive nature of the discussion." "Perfect timing," Corbin remarked dryly. "We were just discussing the creative diagnoses in Dr. Fleming's stolen files." Fleming paled. "Those files are confidential medical records. Any attempt to use them for blackmail—" "Blackmail?" Corbin interrupted. "Is that what you think this is about? I'm investigating a theft that has uncovered what appears to be a systematic effort to drug and incapacitate individuals who threaten the Crescent Club's interests." Montague's smile never wavered. "These are serious and completely unfounded accusations, Mr. Corbin. I'd be careful making such claims without evidence. The evidence is in those files, and in the testimony of Eleanor Winters and Thomas Wilson. A disgruntled former employee and a thief, Juliet dismissed. Hardly reliable witnesses. Perhaps not alone, but combined with the files, your father's condition, and the financial records I've obtained showing the flow of Dubois family money into Crescent Club investments since his illness began. Corbin let the implication hang in the air. A tense silence filled the room. Finally, Montague spoke. "What exactly do you want, Mr. Corbin?" "Justice for George Dubois and any others who've been victimized by this scheme, starting with a complete cessation of his medication and an independent medical evaluation." "Impossible," Juliet snapped. "My father needs his treatment." "Then I'll take everything I've found to the district attorney," Corbin stood, "including the financial record showing how the Dubois fortune has been systematically diverted into Crescent Club holdings since your father's illness began." "You wouldn't get within a mile of the district attorney's office," Montague said softly. "Men like you disappear in cities like this. Not men who take precautions." Corbin smiled thinly. "I've arranged for all my evidence to be delivered to multiple parties, including several newspaper editors, if I don't make a certain telephone call by noon today." The bluff hung in the air. Corbin had made no such arrangements, but the uncertainty in their eyes told him they couldn't risk calling him on it. Dr. Fleming was the first to break. "I was only following instructions. The prescriptions, the diagnoses, the club insisted. They have information about my past that would ruin me." "Harold!" Montague's voice was sharp. "It's over, Edward," Fleming continued, his shoulders slumping. "I can't do this anymore, not after what happened to the Beaumont boy last month." Montague's face hardened. "You're making a grave mistake." A new voice entered the conversation. "I believe you're the one who's made the mistake, Mr. Montague." George Dubois stood in the doorway, steadier than he had been earlier, his eyes clear and focused. Behind him stood Eleanor Winters and a police captain Corbin recognized from his days on the force. "Captain Reynolds," Corbin nodded in greeting. "Corbin," the captain looked grim. "Miss Winters came to me yesterday with a disturbing story. I was skeptical until she mentioned your involvement." "Father, you should be resting," Juliet said quickly. "I've rested enough, daughter." George Dubois' voice was firm. "I stopped drinking the tea 3 days ago, after Eleanor contacted me. The fog has been lifting." He turned to Captain Reynolds. "I'm prepared to give a full statement about the systematic drugging I've endured, as well as details of the financial schemes the Crescent Club has been orchestrating using my family's resources." The next few hours passed in a flurry of activity. Statements were taken, Dr. Fleming confessed to falsifying medical records at the club's behest, and preliminary warrants were issued for financial records. Thomas Wilson emerged from hiding with the original stolen files, providing crucial evidence. As evening fell, Corbin found himself back on the balcony of George Dubois' study, sharing a glass of genuine bourbon with the older man. "I owe you my life, Mr. Corbin," Dubois said quietly. "You owe it to Eleanor Winters. She's the one who never gave up on you." Dubois nodded. "She'll be well taken care of, I assure you. As will you." He handed Corbin an envelope. "Your fee, as promised by my daughter, plus a substantial bonus." Corbin accepted it with a nod. "What happens to the Crescent Club now?" "Its power is broken, though the full extent of their operations will take months to uncover." Dubois gazed out at the city lights. "New Orleans has always thrived on secrets, Mr. Corbin, but some secrets poison everything they touch." The headline in the next morning's newspaper read, "Prominent Doctor and Social Club Implicated in Shocking Conspiracy." Below was a smaller subheading, "Former Detective Solves the Strangest Crime of the Decade." Miles Corbin folded the paper and placed it in his desk drawer, next to the yellowed clippings from the Calloway case. Perhaps it was time to start a new folder. As if on cue, his office door opened and a nervous-looking businessman entered. "Mr. Corbin, I was told you might be able to help me with a delicate situation." Corbin gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Have a seat. Tell me what brings you here." As the man began his story, Corbin felt something he hadn't experienced in years: purpose. The strangest crime of the decade had been solved, but in a city like New Orleans, there would always be another mystery waiting around the corner.